Good afternoon. This is the Transportation Benefit District Board. And I'm Commissioner John Hutchings, the chair of the board, or whatever I'm called. Is it president?
Yes.
Okay, president of the board. To my immediate left is Commissioner Bud Blake, and to his left is Commissioner Gary Edwards, and to my right is the board clerk of the board, Marcy Taylor, and to her right is Public Works Director Jennifer Walker, and to her right is engineer Scott Davis, and I'll address people in the audience when they come up. So with that, we'll call the meeting, been called to order. Can I have approval of the October 16th agenda, please?
I would so move that we approve the October 16th agenda.
Second.
Okay, oh, that's right. So it's been moved and seconded for the agenda. All in favor say aye.
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 That motion carries. Is there a motion for the minutes of September?
Okay. I would move to approve the meeting minutes of September 18th, 2018.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from September. Any discussion or changes?
No.
Nope, okay. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Now, we're number 2 on the agenda is the opportunity for the public to address the board. And I don't see anybody here, and nobody has signed in, so we're going to move straight on to agenda item number 3, department items. The first one is a presentation on the Thurston County Transportation Benefit District, an overview by Scott Lindblom. Go ahead, Scott. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your time this afternoon. I'm here to
County
give
engineer,
you.
I'm sorry. County title.
Yeah,
County
Scott
engineers.
Lindblom, County Engineer with Public Works. Thank you. I'm here today to give you just an overview of our Transportation Benefit District and the Public Works transportation system we have, talk about some of the funding challenges we have, lay out a proposed work plan, and highlight, in the end, actually the next item is kind of a framework of some of the public outreach we've done. But the first item is, as you're aware, Thurston County's transportation system is much more than just the roads and bridges and signs and guardrails. And it really represents perhaps the county's largest investment with a value of nearly $1 billion. In addition to the roads and bridges, we have trails, streetlights, traffic signs, etc. The system is really the lifeblood of the local economy, connecting Thurston County's more than 280,000 residents to jobs, services, and other opportunities, both inside and outside the county. Ensuring all this infrastructure works properly and is there when we need it is a big responsibility, and it takes a lot to make it happen. I'm very concerned about our ability with the resources we have to meet the needs of our community, given the growth we're expecting, the condition of our infrastructure, and the demands now being placed on it. I'll go into some of this information right now. Oh, thank you. Next one. There we go. As you're aware, a major source of our revenue for the road fund is from the road levy of the property tax and the county's portion of the gas tax. Those are primarily directed to operation and maintenance of our roadway system. While the state gas tax has increased, most of the revenue has been directed to the DOT for some of their pressing transportation needs. Little, if any, of the gas tax increases have gone to the counties. The Washington state gas tax is now 45 cents per gallon. Of that, 16% goes to the counties in the state of Washington. What that 16% really represents is 7.2 cents of every gallon of gas gets directed to 39 counties statewide, meaning that 7.2 cents is split 39 ways, not equally. Meanwhile, the federal gas tax has not been indexed to inflation and has been the same level since 1993. Limitations on property tax increases have resulted in revenues from the road levy of the property tax falling far behind inflation. We also continue to see increasing costs for construction and materials. Looking ahead, projections by the Washington State Transportation Commission show a decline in gas tax revenue as the fuel efficiency of vehicles increases. While fuel efficiency is a great thing for the environment, a great thing for the taxpayers, it's having a direct and projected to have an even more dramatic impact on the county road revenue for the transportation system. And this will affect not only Thurston County, but counties statewide. As you're aware, Thurston County's been diverting a portion of the road levy at the property tax for nearly 20 years. To date, about $38 million has been diverted from the road fund, either through a diversion or levy shift. If the budget you are considering as county commissioners for the 2019 and 2020 is approved and maintained for the future, the combined $4 million diverted or shifted through levy shift each year from the road fund will result in an effective loss of an additional $24 million from the road fund in just the next 6 years. Looking ahead, by 2030, Thurston County will have diverted or shifted from the road fund about $86 million. That $86 million cumulative shift and diversion could have replaced nearly 40 of our oldest bridges and functionally obsolete bridges, chip sealed every Thurston County road twice, and also paved 350 centerline miles of road. But the TBD is one of the tools you have to help address this important issue. As proposed in this is a very high-level work plan for the TBD. Would focus on preservation, safety, and technology. Simply put, that means taking care of what we have, helping keep communities safe, and updating systems to deliver time, safety, and cost benefits. If the TBD were to take an action this year, we would expect some of the funding to be available by mid-2019. What we could do in 2019 is begin the expansion of our wide edge lines to promote road safety and begin to restore neighborhood traffic calming program. In 2020, we would expect to be able to continue the wide edge lines, begin work on a design of an overheight warning system for the Mullen Road railroad trestle, and most likely begin overlays of nearly 4 miles of roads with $1 million, not 4 million miles of roads.
No.
So what happens if the TBD is not funded? Some examples would be that there would be no funding allocated for guardrail updates. There'd be no neighborhood traffic calming projects, no expansion of the wide edge lines, and our pavement management system or pavement overlay system would be minimal at best. Additionally, we'd likely focus most of our efforts on preservation and maintenance of our road system. It will be difficult to actually make improvements to reduce congestion, be difficult to upgrade our roads to accommodate growth or improve safety, or upgrade outdated infrastructure. Each year, we use the county road fund as match for critically important grants that fund some of these improvements. For example, $1 million of county road fund can be used to leverage $5 to $8 million of grants from the state and federal government. We will not be successful in getting those grants if we don't have local match. The discussion of county road funding should also include an assessment of what legal mandates are in place governing the county road program and whether these requirements are being met. All 39 counties in the state are required by statute to abide by the County Road Administration Board standards of good practice. Failing to meet these standards could jeopardize the county's state rural arterial trust account, which provides funding for the rural arterial program. The county is also required under growth management to address capacity issues resulting from growth. Perhaps the most important mandate is the legal duty to keep our county roads safe for the public. Failing to comply with the requirements of the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, or MUTCD, or the adopted design standards or industry maintenance practices could affect the liability for the county and perhaps put the public at risk. So right now we're in the stage of gathering community feedback. We started a phone survey first week of October with the help of a consultant. We are actively trying to get written comments submitted to the Transportation Benefit District website. Next month, we'll be presenting some of the feedback we've received at the November TBD board meeting. At that same meeting, we'll be presenting an item for you to consider to fund the TBD. And finally, for anyone watching now, this is an opportunity looking at these websites and emails on options to get your voice heard, and I'm certainly open to any questions that you, the board, may have at this time.
Okay, Gary, go ahead.
So let me see if I understand this right. So the gas tax for the state is 45 cents. the counties get 16% of that, which equates to 7 cents.
Yep, just about 7 cents.
And that 7 cents is divided up amongst 39 counties, what, based on population?
It's based on a couple different things. There's a formula that is used where it considers 10% of that is equally distributed among the counties. 30% is based on population, 30% is based on road miles, and 30% is based on the annual road cost, the cost to maintain those roads. So it's a formula that was developed, and it's been used since, I don't know, it's been in place for some time. I can't give you the date.
Okay. Are we currently out of compliance? You mentioned some compliance issues there in your presentation. Are we out of compliance anywhere, or are we close to being out of compliance? And what are other jurisdictions doing? Are they also either out of compliance or close to being out of compliance? Are you aware of how we stack up against other government entities faced with this same problem that we have?
To my knowledge, there are no other counties that are out of compliance with the CRAB's standards of good practice. And Thurston County is in compliance with those standards.
Okay. What happens if you mentioned, like if your funding ability is limited because you don't have enough capital or whatever it is, that then you are no longer eligible for certain funds? Are we close to being in that category, and are others in that category? And what happens to governmental entities that end up in that category?
Well, you might be speaking of two different things. For the eligibility for the RATA funding, which funds our RAP program, you have to have standing in good compliance with the County Road Administration Board. That makes us eligible for that funding. And again, as far as I know, there's no other counties that are at risk of that. You also mentioned, and I think you might be thinking about the availability of us to be eligible for grant funding. Most of the grants that we get require a match anywhere from 14% to 40%. The more skin you have in the game, the more match you have available, the more competitive your grant application is. We do get some grants, primarily safety grants. Scott Davis has been quite successful in getting some of those, but those are really targeted towards safety improvements only. Big projects like we have on Mullen Road right now, that's a combination of, that's got TIB money, which is 14% match, I believe. I think we have STP money on that, and we've got some other local jurisdictions helping us out. The City of Lacey is contributing to that as well.
For the public, the TIB and the STP, will you please spell them out?
The TIB is the Transportation Improvement Board. It's a grant, one of our sources of revenue, and the STP is the Surface Transportation Program. It's a federal grant.
Thank you, Scott.
Currently, what percentage of our operations are done, say like paving or whatever we're doing, are done by contract versus by county employees? Do you know the breakdown of that?
A vast majority of our capital projects are done by contract. This year in 2018, we had, we had contract for chip seal. Our crews can do some of the thin overlays that are primarily targeted to neighborhoods, but the bigger overlay projects, we typically contract that out as well. We're limited by state law on how much we are able to contract out. It's a label called county force work, and that's set based on the revenue that we get as a county. And rough numbers, I believe we can do about $1.8 million worth of work with our own crews each year. We typically don't reach that amount, but that's what we'd be eligible to do.
You said 1.8?
Yeah, that's our upper limit.
And is that guided through some kind of a state regulatory process?
It is, yes.
So do you have any idea if we're doing, say, close to $2 million by ourselves, are we doing 20 million on contracts or 10 or what?
Great question. This year, our capital program, we are projected to spend about $13 to $14 million by the end of the year on contract work. That's to support our capital projects. So that's, let's see, Delphi Road will be going out to bid with soon. We had a Safe Routes to School project. I'm drawing a complete blank, but we had, let's see, Marvin Road we're in design on, Mullen Road we're in design on. Drawing a complete blank at what else we did a lot this year. Yeah, Bald Hill Road.
So
Fish
did you
Fish
just,
Passage
I happen to know
Yep.
that you did something out on Bald Hill Road and you did something over on Vale Road.
Yep.
Were those jobs that you did yourself versus contracting out?
Well, the Vale Road work that you might be referring to is the road repair work we did when we found a bunch of large cedar logs under the
Yeah,
roadway.
right.
That was all county work, county force work, so our crews did that work. A great example is the Fish Passage work. That's about $3 million of contract work that's just finishing up right now. The Safe Routes to School, that was contract work. So typically our larger capital projects are all contract work.
Okay, do you know if I don't know, have you implemented some type of savings goals as far as, I know something went on, you changed some schedules out there or something and you're working more overtime or less overtime, or have we had any savings there? I guess I would address that towards our Public Works Director.
I am not familiar with what you're referring to in terms of savings out there. I will say that we have reduced the amount of overtime that we've worked on this year. And that was twofold. One, because staff can only produce at that level for so long and it starts to take its toll. So we have put an emphasis on that. When Scott talks about the 1.8 million for county forces, we have to be able to have the resources in terms of people to be able to do that work. And so the prepping for overlay program, our crews do, but we also are responsible for vegetation management, drainage, the NPDES program as well. So we just have a limited number of people to be able to do the various work that we're responsible for doing.
Okay.
Well, good questions. Do you have any questions? I've got a couple questions. Scott, the gas tax, when the price per gallon increases, does the sales, or does the tax then revenue increase as well?
Well, the more gallons that are sold generate more revenue. So certainly with less efficient vehicles, in one sense, it brings in more revenue to the road fund. But what we're seeing is the shift toward more efficient vehicles. Again, good for the environment, good for the pocketbooks, but that's having a direct impact on less revenue for, again, not just Thurston County roads, but county roads statewide.
Right, and I understand that. I just want the public to realize that even though the gas has gone up to $3.44 for 45, whatever a gallon, doesn't mean governments are reaping in additional tax revenue.
That's right.
See, that's going somewhere else. It's not coming to the government.
Yeah, the tax rate stays the same. So regardless of whether it's $5 a gallon or $1 a gallon, that tax rate per gallon is what matters for the DOT and the counties and cities.
And so with the efficiency, revenues are declining, and
Correct.
with the increase in taxes, or the increase per gallon, people are more conservative in their driving. So again, sales, I think, drop a bit.
Correct.
That's just anecdotal. So I'm on the TRPC committee, the Thurston Regional Planning Council, and we follow WashDOT and what they're doing with the trial period on the pay per mile program. And I know you're going to be familiar with that, correct? Mm-hmm. So with the pay per mile, is that set? Is that's going to be, if and when that happens, what kind of formula will that generate for revenue for the county or for local government?
It's a little bit too early to be determined. What they're looking at doing, I mean, you bring up a great point. It's the pay per mile or the road usage charge. That is an option that's being looked at to see if it's feasible to assess people a per mile charge for every mile they travel. So that would ultimately take the place of the gas tax. That could stabilize or help stabilize funding for local agencies and such. But, you know, again, the long-term goal will be a replacement for that. It's in the feasibility stage right now. I'm actually on the committee that's working on that. And so part of the trial is, I drive an older pickup, and so it would actually be a benefit to me because I pay a lot of gas tax right now. I'm supporting the county roads directly.
Thank you for
yeah,
that.
You're welcome. So what I would see, and when I get these sample invoices, I would actually end up paying a little bit less. Those with electric vehicles, which pay absolutely no gas tax and still have a big impact on our road system, they would end up paying more. So it's really it's a pay for the use. And if everybody uses a road system, everybody should contribute toward the operation and maintenance of that road system. Good roads are not cheap, and cheap roads are not good. So
That's well put, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I have a final question at this point, and that is the 86 million in road fund that has been shifted over what period of time?
that's since, let's see, that will be up through 2030, going back to when the diversion started. It was about 20 years ago.
Yeah, about
20 years.
1987.
Okay,
Yes.
is that true? About 1987? Okay. And so that has reduced our capacity locally to maintain roads and such. And what I'm hearing is, you said one option is to generate a revenue, I'm not putting words in your mouth, correct me if I'm wrong, generate revenue elsewhere to support that? Or is the answer stop road fund shifting?
Well, the TBD is a mechanism that you have to bring in revenue for the road fund. And I understand that when the funds are diverted or shifted, they go for other important purposes.
And
you know,
legal.
Absolutely
legal.
legal.
Yeah.
Absolutely legal. But my job as the county engineer is to really speak for the roads.
Sure.
And you know, when those funds are no longer available for the roads, you know, it causes me great concern, especially looking out into the future.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to get a close approximate, I don't know that you'll know this, if you can't get it to me, you know, now, if you don't know it off the top of your head, I'd like to know it for the future, because I interact quite often with the public that, and they're concerned, what do they get for their tax dollar? Often that's a question that we entertain. And I'm trying to get a handle on this 7 cents divided by 39 counties. And so are we, out of this 45 cents that a citizen pays for gas tax in Washington State?
And again, that's just the state's portion. There's a federal portion on top of
Yes, yeah, but just from that state perspective, are we only getting about 1/4 of 1 cent per gallon purchased by folks? I mean, they spend, you know, I don't know, they have to buy 5 gallons and we get a penny?
I think probably the best thing to do, I can get you the exact number, and that
Okay.
might be the best thing to do. And with that, what I can do is get you what other counties are doing too, just to show you how that compares. Because what that will do is it will show you the effect of the formula that's used to kind of calculate each county's revenue from the gas tax. In a engineer way, it's kind of an interesting way to look at it. But it's also somewhat sobering when you look at, there's a perception that government's got a lot of money from the gas tax. The reality doesn't really coincide with the perception that's out there. So it's, when you look at, again, the state, or the state gas tax and the federal gas tax, and then the county's very small slice of that, it's kind of a telling scenario when you can look at those numbers. But I'm happy to provide that to you. I just don't have that right now.
I guess if you can come up with that, that'll help. And what I'm equating this to is has nothing to do with necessarily with roads, but it has everything to do with distribution of tax money in this state. And the marijuana distribution, that was looked at as a windfall. You know, that's the way it was promoted, that legalized marijuana will have all this revenue. And in Thurston County, I believe in 2017, total collected was $14.8 million, and the county got $143,000, which is less than 1%. Now, I understand they're going to give us another percent this coming year. Still, That's not much compared to everything taken in.
Right.
And it sounds like that's kind of comparable to what's going on with the gas tax. So when I talk to citizens, they're flabbergasted that that minute amount comes back to the county to do all the regulatory stuff, the permitting, the zoning, the courts, the police, whatever it entails. And I think they'd be every bit as concerned if you were talking about that or if I was talking about that in the reality of possibly a quarter of a penny, a quarter of a cent per gallon is what we end up getting back. So I'd like to know that figure so I could
Sure.
let our legislators know that, hey, things are out of whack here just a little bit.
Well, in using that gas tax formula, all county, it was designed to be fair and equitable for all the counties. And every county has different needs. And so while Thurston County's share is very small, every other county's share is quite small as well.
Oh, yes,
And
I
it's
think
based
they're
on-
treating us all equally bad, So I'm not questioning that, but I do think we need to take a look at that from a legislative perspective.
Anything, Bud?
Nope, I'm good, thanks.
Okay, you had a slide with a handsome young pillar of our society in it, and I was facing that young man. Can you go back to that? It's just one previous slide. Can we go back one? Just, there you go. Thank you. There you go.
Whoa.
Oh, okay. The next steps, I just want to reiterate that the community feedback is going throughout October. There's a phone survey, written comments to TCTBD at County Thurston and all that, or just
It's actually the best way to look at it would be on
okay there. Okay.
TCTBD.
And there's facilitated in-person discussions. Are there dates and locations for that as well?
Those have not been scheduled yet. We just got a meeting template prepared by our consultant just the other day, so we are prepared to do that.
And then our November TBD board meeting, we're going to consider TBD funding. And that'll be about the same date in October in November as we are now, whatever that week works out to be. There will be sufficient, you think, time for feedback from the public to give
Well-
them sufficient time to get information to us?
I believe so. With the feedback with the survey starting October 1st, they will have a full month to get any feedback in. And certainly, they're more than welcome to and encouraged to attend the November TBD board meeting as well. And at that time, you have an opportunity for the public to address the board.
So prior to considering TBD funding, the time for community feedback ends on the scariest day of the year, October 31st? Halloween?
I think that is Halloween,
Okay,
yes.
thank you. That's kind of weird. All right, no further questions. Yeah, Gary?
That $20 car tab that could go towards funding this, could you give me a breakdown of the monetary amount in categories that it goes forward? I mean, $20 is a board decision,
Yeah.
$30 is a vote decision, or could you give me that breakdown?
Yes.
Where does it find, and where I'm really looking to go, where does the voter get a chance to have their say? At what level do we have to attain to get that? I mean, give me the whole breakdown.
Sure.
That-
May I interrupt real quick?
Yep.
Is that, I'm not cutting you off, I want you to get the information, because I want the same information, but does that come up in a different briefing or in a different presentation?
We presented it before,
We have,
but we will be presenting it again in November. But if Scott can
Yeah.
kind of go off the cuff and.
Yeah, so real
But
generally.
also,
yeah.
but include with what Gary Edwards, Commissioner Edwards is looking for is the comparison with some type of a public safety tax or something that might, or some other tax that might be imposed, sales tax, to fund transportation.
Yeah, sure. I can give you a couple examples. So a $20 vehicle license fee would generate up to about $1.9 million per year. The TBD board, you as the TBD board, can assess those vehicle license fees councilmatically, so without a vote of the people, or if you choose, you can also go to a vote of the people. to implement those car tabs.
Oh, on the
Vehicle
$20 one, you can go to the vote of the
Yeah,
people as
it's
well?
certainly up to you.
Oh, okay. And then
the-
at what other levels?
And then you as a board can implement the $40 car tabs after a waiting period of 2 years, I believe. And then additional 2 years beyond that, once the $40 tab has been in place for 2 years, you can also go up to a $50 car tab without a vote of the people. But again, you always have that option for a vote of the people.
Well, what I recall was that Council-matic, we can go 20 or 40, but anything over $40 per car tab, I believe, and I'm not a legal expert, we need to have professionals educate us on this. Anything over 40 would require a vote of the people.
No, yeah, anything over 50 requires the vote,
Over
but
50?
I believe you can go, as a board, you can go in those steps.
Okay.
20, 40, and then 50.
All right. But I had a ton of questions on that topic as well, though. I mean, if we institute something, can it be sunsetted or not?
That's my question.
Yeah, can we do it for a year or 2 years and sunset it or
10
something?
years.
Yeah, that's entirely up to you as the board. One of the ways that the Thurston County TBD is set up is the programs that were intended to, that are really part of the work plan, they're different from what the cities did. So when the city of Olympia, city of Tumwater, and city of Lacey established their TBDs, which are funded by Olympia's $40 vehicle license fee and the city's Lacey and Tumwater sales tax. As I understand it, and I could be off, but those identified specific projects. So when those specific projects are done, the TBD has a certain timeline to either disband, or I believe they can identify new projects as well.
Okay. Go ahead, Gary. Yeah.
Maybe just a follow-up for our next meeting. Is there any chance you could give us a little more of a breakdown? I think you mentioned we can only do internally maybe $1.8 million, maybe, and anything more than that, which is how much, I really don't know, is obligated to be contracted out. Could we get a little more information on that? Just what the breakdown is, how much we typically do in a year, and we're obligated to do X number of dollars through contract, and we can only do 1.8 internally. That's
Yeah.
kind of my layman's take on it. from
Yeah,
what you
and
explained.
so the county force limit is, it's about $1.8 million.
Okay.
And just because there is that limit, I don't know that we've ever reached that limit, and if we have, probably not more than once in, well, I'm not sure how long. We could get you what we typically spend for county force work and the limit, which might kind of address what you're getting to, with the understanding that everything else is contract.
Yes, okay, that
Would that-
that would work, sure,
Okay.
something like that.
There is no limit on what we can contract out, except by the resources
The
that
amount
we
of money you
have.
have available, right?
So-
Yeah, no, the limit I'm thinking about is for our own staff to do things. I mean, I'm kind of surprised that we have that limit in place, but if that's part of the deal, that's fine. I just need to know that.
Sure.
Because I'm not very knowledgeable on this topic.
Well, and I think it's a part of what we've been talking about even at the department level, and that is kind of priorities, right? And so there's lots of activities, just as the county has lots of services that they need to deliver on, and they have to prioritize on those, on the programs. We have the same within Public Works and specifically within road operations. So when we're looking at not only what is the cost, what are the resources that we have to do it, and in a sense, kind of where's the most bang for our buck. So we've talked a lot about prevention and that preservation of roads, because we know as they continue to degrade, the cost of repairing them and bringing them up to current standards is more expensive than it is to do routine maintenance. One point of clarification as well, you were talking about the gas tax, and the gas tax is actually based on the miles of road that we maintain.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the criteria. There's a 30, 30, 30, and 10.
Yes,
Sounded
30,
like
30, 30, 10, yes.
Yeah. See, I was paying attention.
All right, anything further?
No, I'm fine. That's very,
Anything?
Very interesting presentation.
All right. Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
Now, the next one, 3B, is the presentation on Thurston County Transportation Benefit District Communication Plan. And you taking this one as well?
I am, yes.
All righty.
So I think what you have in front of you is an outline of some of the work that we've been doing to get this word, this messaging out to the public. What I'd like to do is just kind of walk you through some of those things that we've been doing, a little bit more detail than we just talked about a moment ago. So some of the things that, if you go onto our website, what you'll see is we realized that our website for the TBD was somewhat difficult to navigate. So in order to try to make a easier path for citizens to provide comment, we did reorganize the website to make it a bit more user-friendly, updated the content. We even updated the logo, which you might have seen in the earlier slide. The updated website went live October 1st. Visitors can now have the option to provide input by mail, as I mentioned before, until October 31st. Any comments submitted by this date will be summarized to you in our November report. And I also mentioned a moment ago, we embarked on a statistically valid phone survey. That was done by a consultant, began the first week of October, and it was done by a firm specializing in survey implementation. It was a 12-minute survey, really intended to capture a representative sample of residents living in the unincorporated area. Topics covered in the survey included the perception of roadway conditions, general safety, investment priorities, willingness to pay for transportation improvements, and a funding mechanism preference. We've also been engaging in a social media outreach effort. We provided content for social media to capture additional input beyond those that participated in the survey. To take advantage of the county's existing website followers, we developed content posts for the official Thurston County Facebook and Twitter pages. The posts have been made or are in the process of being made in 3 waves. The first is the week of October 1st. The second wave will be this week, and the final wave for outreach will be the 29th. We developed a short write-up for the Olympian and Thurston Talk, and that news release or press release went out, I believe, last Friday. I mentioned a moment ago as well that we prepared a meeting in a box which will be used to facilitate some in-person contacts. And finally, next month, once we've gathered all the community input, we'll be developing a memorandum and presenting this to you, the board, at our November meeting. And hopefully at that point, it will allow you enough information to make an informed decision on what steps you'd like to follow from that point on. Any questions on that?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
As part of your communication strategy, do you let the public know the why of what we're faced with, whether that be the 1% cap on the property tax process and maybe when that kicked in and how that has been detrimental to us keeping up and keeping our roads up the way we should, and even going back to that 1/4 of 1 cent. I think if the public knew some of these things that we end up hearing about because we're in a briefing, they might be more receptive to taxation that would help.
Yeah, that's great feedback. We have incorporated quite a bit of that into our presentations that we have. In fact, our presentation has now been, I guess it's it's got a voiceover now, so you can go onto our website, or I just got it before I came up here, probably by tomorrow. It will be on the website, a narrated version of the PowerPoint presentation, so the public can go on there, get some of this very information you're talking about. I don't know if it has the information on the gas tax, but I think that you bring up a great point. That's a really important piece of telling our story. And that's, I think, one of the challenges that our agency has and every agency in the state. Just how do we best get the information out to the public? What's the most compelling information that the public is needing to hear or wanting to hear?
I guess if I had the ability, I would advocate for the shortest, most informative piece of information that you could get out there in whatever format you're using.
Yeah, that's you're talking to an engineer who likes to be very thorough, and so that's why we need to bring in people that can translate engineer speak to what the really key messages are. So great feedback, though. Thank you.
Nothing further?
No.
Bud?
I'm good, thanks.
Just one question regarding the phone survey, Scott. That just went out to county residents only,
Correct, just to those in the unincorporated county.
unincorporated. And I would imagine Fair and Piers are quite adept at doing this. So they validated that we received a good cross-section of the county?
Yep, yeah, and all that's kind of laid out in the report. It goes into, I believe it goes into the gender, political affiliation, where you live. And so they do this, their company does this for a living, and I believe that, well, it is a statistically valid survey, and I think we hedged our bets a little bit and said, get a little bit more people than the bare minimum, just to make sure that we get a good representation of what the community pulse is.
And how many was that, 400?
I believe it was 400 people.
400? I just read it. Okay. All right, thank you. Anything
thank you.
further? No?
Are you going to give an overview of that? I know we've got it, but are you giving a quick overview?
We'll give an overview of that once all the.
Everything's put
yeah,
together?
Once it's all
Okay.
scrubbed up and such. So at our November meeting, we'll go into that in a bit more detail.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Scott, very much. Now we're going to shift to 3C on the agenda, and that's the Director's Report, Public Works. Director Jennifer Walker.
Thank you. Can we pull up the last slide? One of the questions that was asked at the previous agenda setting when we were talking about this presentation was the impact of the road diversion and levy shift to the road fund. Do we not have a slide of that? Okay, so it's the last page in your packet.
I just found it, yeah.
Great. And so if you look off to the left of that graph, in 2017, we have an ending fund balance in the road fund of $15,847,745. And as we move to the right of that graph each year, if you look at the green line as we're shooting up where it says diversion and levy shift, so there's now a $4 million total that's being shifted out, the black line, you will see that each year as we move off to the right, the ending fund balance is decreasing. And by 2022, we are below our reserve, targeted fund reserve. So our targeted fund reserve is 2 to 3 months. It's about 5 million, 5.3 million. And so based off of this continued road diversion and levy shift, if we continue on with the current program that we have scheduled, by 2022, we will be below our target fund reserve. And then by 2024, 1.7 million versus the 5.4 that's recommended. The green line, the diversion and levy shift, so this would be what our fund balance would be if there wasn't the diversion and road levy shift that was happening. So in that 6-year period, $24 million shifting out of the road fund. And so this is as a direct response to the question, what is the impact to the road fund from the road diversion and levy shift?
That's too bad it's not on the slides or they're on the screen so the public can see it.
Yes.
Okay.
Are there any specific questions regarding that? It's part of what we talked about too when we did the budget presentation.
No, I don't. Do you, Bud?
Okay.
Gary?
No,
No.
good.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jennifer.
Thank you.
Is that all you have for a director report?
Yes, I thought that spoke volumes.
Oh, it does. That's pretty heavy. Is this the 31st? This might be the scariest day
It
of the
was
year.
my, that kind of the mic drop that I wanted to be able to answer questions too.
That's it. Wow. Okay. Anybody else? Anyone going around the room? Anyone? Commissioners? No?
I'm good.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I would move to adjourn today's meeting.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn the TBD meeting of the 16th of October. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. We're adjourned.
All right.